If you haven't seen Season 8 of Voltron yet, I really suggest that you click out of this video for there will be spoilers. Hello everyone, my name is Nicole and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sitting down and discussing my reaction and thoughts on the 8th and final season of the Netflix original series, Voltron Legendary Defenders. So here's your second warning, if you have not seen it yet, please click out of this video. It only took me like 5 hours to binge it, so it shouldn't take that long. So usually for my videos to go more fluently, I write a script and I read off of the script. But for this, I wanted to get my more genuine, heartfelt reaction, more of an in-the-moment type of thing. But I do have a list of things that I would like to talk about just so I don't get too much off track and, you know, way in the left field. So I know that it came out on Friday of this week, or Friday of last week actually, and since then I have watched Season 8 twice. The second time I got to watching it, I really wanted to focus on the smaller details and like everything that leads up to the ending, because boy was that ending insane! So for this video, I'm kind of going to go by the episodes that are in the season, so there are 13 of them, but I bunched the last 3 together just because most of it is just a big battle. And so I just want to talk about like what my reaction was and how I felt while watching this and explain a little bit about what I believed about the show. So for the first episode, I would like to talk about Luca. And do not worry, I will get to the Allurants later. But for those of you who don't know, Luca is the name of the Altean that they found in the Roe Beast. So what I thought was most interesting about the whole thing with Luca was that it really showed how much power that Unnerva has. And not even just Unnerva, but Lotor as well, because he took a bunch of Alteans and he really manipulated their minds and portrayed himself as the good guy. He was helping them, he was supplying them with food, he was supplying them with shelter. It just goes to show that even the worst of the worst of the worst kind of leaders, their power isn't always in the strength, but how they communicate to people and how they can influence the people that they're hailing over. Alright, now it's time to talk about Allurants. And so, let me just get this out of the way, because I know there are a lot of Voltron fans that were, oh, Clance this, Clance that, Clance everything, which I am not against, but Allurants, out of my, let's say, you know, all the shows that I've ever watched, ever, it's probably in my top 3 ships. Like, right from the first episode when Lance fell in love, I am so down for the goofy love who never really gets the girl until the end, because, you know, that happens in, like, everything. But anything that's cheesy, anything that's romantic, anything that's so adorable, I am there for. So there wasn't really one moment in the first episode that I wasn't like, oh, that's so cute! I was, oh, like, my heart was screaming! So, like, the whole thing goes down, Lance asks her on a date, and then she goes to eat with his family. And we actually find out that Lance isn't actually really good with the ladies, which is kind of a really big surprise to me because, you know, even with the group of people with the robot, I completely forgot her name, but then also the underwater creatures. Like, throughout this entire series, like, Lance has really been, like, a flirtatious guy. But just the fact that that has been his personality, and the fact that he is so nervous to ask Laura out on a date, it really shows that he's into it more than just for her looks, that he really cares about her and all of that. You guys, and then they kiss, and I died on the inside. Oh, it was so adorable! And then for the last thing that I'm going to talk about the first episode, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long video, but it really hit me that Pidge was fighting with her mom when they were in the garden area. So this part really made me feel something because, you know, they're just teenagers, like they're just young kids. And they've done so much already, not only to help themselves, but also to help the entire universe. And to see that, oh, their parents still are like, oh, no, you can't do this, you're grounded. Like, it really applies the humanity to the situation that, oh, yeah, they did this extraordinary thing, but they're also just living their lives. And then another thing with Pidge, when they were in the market looking for an outfit for Allura for her date, it really surprised me that Pidge gave up her game to get Allura's dress, because it shows that even she, like, they all loved each other, obviously, but she was willing to give up this game that she wanted to play so bad, just so Allura can look nice for one day. Just for one night. Like, how amazing of a friend is Pidge? Like, that's awesome. So now it's time to talk about episode 2. So for episode 2, we get to see Nerva's journey throughout most of her life, and how, you know, she became so evil. Because she wasn't always evil. More towards the end of season 7, she starts to, you know, gain her consciousness again. She gets away from the quintessence, and, you know, she gains most of her memories back. And honestly, all she wants to do is be with her family again. And I think episodes like this are really interesting to see, because it really gives depth to the villain, and it makes you think, oh, they're not just a bad person. They're not just doing this because they are bad. They're doing this for a reason, and I think that really drives character development. So another thing with this episode, it really shows how, like, abused Lotor was as a kid, because, well, first his mom was always right there, but she didn't know it was, like, she was his mom, and he didn't know that she was his mom. And so when Nerva, she tries, and she, like, gets out of the hypnotism that the quintessence put her in, all she wants to do is, like, get back that lost time that she never had with her kid. And, you know, Lotar is gone now, and so the only way that she would be able to get that time back is to do what she does at the end of the series, which is, you know, jump into different realities and try and find the perfect one. And then also, I believe, in that scene where she's standing by the Eternal Flame, or not the Eternal Flame, but whatever it's called, and she kills all the Galra that's there, she thoroughly believes that the Galra is the reason why Lotor is dead. Galra and also Voltron. But because Lotor was half Galra, she believes that, you know, that half of him was the half that got him killed. Like, if he was Altean, then he wouldn't feel that kind of hate. And she thinks that all Galra want are to destroy. And that is a part of her downfall. Alright, now we're getting on to episode 3. So at the end of episode 3, they do end up going off on their own, away from the Atlas. But before that, they find the Galra warlord, and they do enter that one Galra ship. And, you know, the warlord, I have no clue what his name is, but the warlord and Allura, they have this conversation, and it kind of, watching it the second time, because watching it the first time, I was like, oh, they're just having a conversation. That's probably not even going to be important in, like, 2 episodes. And it really, you know, made me think about it the second time, because the Galra warlord, he literally told Allura that, oh, she's never had to work for power. She's only had peace in her life, and she's just trying to get back what she once had. And so she doesn't understand true sacrifice. And, you know, watching it the second time, after knowing her fate at the end of episode 13, it is foreshadowing. And a lot of people, like, from comments that I've seen on Instagram and YouTube, they're like, oh, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, that was such an out of nowhere kind of thing to do. But going back to the 3rd episode, you see that, oh, she kind of gets the sense that, yeah, I haven't really made any sacrifices. Yeah, I gave up the Castle of Lions. I don't have a family anymore except for Voltron. But she's never made any bigger sacrifice to a bigger cause, and that, I believe, is what pushes her to sacrifice herself at the end of season 8. And then in episode 4, we find out that Alcarion is destroyed, which is insane, because, you know, they have such awesome, like, technology and all of that, and they can control technology, and they can control the Earth, but they had no means to fight back for the Roe Beast. They physically could not fight the Roe Beast, And, you know, at the end of the episode, it's like, oh, they could save billions of lives. But they still, like, a lot of them got away, and it's never addressed in the series after that point. Like, we see at the end of Pidge's flashback, whatever you want to call it, that there are ships that get away. There are a lot of them. There's at least like 7 or 8 of them. So enough Alkari got away to, you know, start a new population and continue the traditions of being super geniuses that know how to control the technology. And there are also other Alkari that are, you know, fighting with the Galra. We see one in, I think, a few episodes from now, when they're stuck on the low oxygen planet. And so I don't know, it's just, it really like shook me that that was something that they never really talked about, because it really had a big impact on Pidge, but not all of them, you know, were destroyed along with their planet, which she saw in her flashbacks, but she didn't really mention it to everyone else. And then the last thing I have written down for episode 4 is, yay, they find a way to track the Roe Beast, which is very helpful later in the season. So, good job, episode 4. And then we get to episode 5. So, the first thing that I have written down is Aksha tries to fit in, which I think, you know, that'd be really hard for her to do, because she's grown up being the outcast. She's grown up only being used for, you know, her strength, only being used because Lotor wanted somebody who was like him, that would trust him, and who would stand by him. But so, one thing that really stuck out to me was the table scene when Veronica was like, oh, come sit over here, and then she went and sat over there, which she is trying to be friendly. Like, she could have said, no, I don't want to sit with you. She could have left. But so she goes and she sits down, and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's a little awkward now because you're Gulra. So it kind of showed me that even though, like, oh, Keith is half Gulra, even though Keith's mom is Gulra, even though there are so many people who are Gulra, who, you know, have helped the Voltron Coalition, who have helped take down Zarkon, all of this stuff, there is still such a strong bias against the Galra, and people who have worked alongside Lotor and Zarkon, and, you know, anyone who is ever bad to Voltron, that, you know, people who say, oh, I didn't think you were gonna be this bad, they kind of have to, like, do a double take. So then we get into episode 6, which is when Nerva goes to open up the big portal, and she brings Lotor, she doesn't bring Lotor back from the dead, but she uses his dead body to control the exoskeleton suit that he used in the previous season. So that's most of what happens in episode 6, but there is a turning point to where ex-Lotor, which is what I'm going to call him because, you know, he's dead. But so ex-Lotor, he goes, and right when Allura is about to kill Anerva, ex-Lotor is about to stab Lance. And, you know, Allura doesn't know that until Anerva is like, oh, well, if you kill me, then, like, your friends are gonna die. And it really shows that, oh, wow, like, Allura might not be strong enough to make the sacrifices that she needs to save the universe, because, you know, no one else, obviously, from the Voltron team would sacrifice their teammates to save the world, even though, I don't know, it's, I personally, if I was on Voltron, which would be awesome, I wouldn't be able to be in the position that Allura finds herself in without choosing my friends over the galaxy, especially since she just got into a relationship with Lance, and, you know, they've been together, and, you know, they love each other. So yeah, that's kind of what happens in episode 6, and then we get episode 7, which is the found footage episode. So I really like this episode. It really, episodes like this really let us see into the side characters more than just, oh, you know, Hunk, Keith, Pidge, Lance, Allura, Karan, Shiro. You know, it lets us see, oh, Veronica, it lets us see, you know, every other character that doesn't really have a prominent role in the series. It definitely gives more of an in-depth relationship to, oh, why are these people here? Why are they fighting? Rather than just, oh, they're one of the side characters. They're one of the soldiers of Voltron. And, it really helps out with, like, seeing what they do outside of being Voltron. Like, Hunk really likes baking. Keith and Pidge, like, they hang out on the side too. It's just interesting to see them sitting down and eating a meal rather than sitting in their robot wandering through space trying to find giant robies that they can destroy. It also gives us footage of Allura and Ramel when they're trying to, convince the other Alteans that, oh, we're not the bad guys, like, you're being brainwashed, like, just try and listen to us rather than just use your biases against us. And, that obviously fails. And then we get Allurance. But not the point. Actually, that is my next point. It was Allurance. You guys, it's just so awesome because, like, I've shipped so many things. And there's so many, like, wonderful things that could happen in Voltron. But just to, like, take it aside and say, oh, well, they're not only fighting for the universe, but they're also fighting so they could live their lives. And they're also just teenagers, so they do have, the wants and the needs of a teenager. And I just love it. I love seeing when your heroes have that sense of humanity. And I think that's why I really love Allurance so much. Okay, so episode 8 is the episode of Clear Day, which it was, kind of almost a filler episode, but so Allura, it's more of an important episode for her because she gets to kind of be by herself and none of the other Voltron paladins are there with her. So she does figure out how Nerva controls the Alteans with that the ball of dark energy that it starts to give Allura these hallucinations of being on the old Altea with her mother, and her mom is like, oh, come and save me, like, we need your help. And then so she gets into the Robies and she ends up destroying the Galra ships, but then she looks down and the rest of the planet is also destroyed, which kind of gives us, oh, well, maybe these Alteans aren't really thinking for themselves. Maybe they are seeing remnants of their past. Maybe they're seeing the old Altea and they're like, oh, well, if you really want to save this planet, then you have to go destroy these. But they're actually destroying the planet while trying to help Nerva. When Allura releases the ball of dark energy into herself, we do kind of get that step in the direction that, oh, she's willing to sacrifice herself to save her friends, to save her family, to save the galaxy. Which, in contrast to a few episodes ago when she had the chance to kill Nerva, but she would have sacrificed her friends in the process, it really shows not only a character growth, but a part of her that really does care for, I'd rather give up myself than I'd rather give up my friends. When they come back from the Clear Day Festival, they actually find Allura, passed out on the ground. And so there is the whole thing of, yeah, she was still hallucinating when the ball of dark energy entered her body and she was seeing all of these things. So after this point, Allura is never really going to be the same because she has this dark energy inside of her, and she's willing to sacrifice herself, which leads up to the conclusion of the entire series, which we'll get to later. But first, we gotta talk about the Allurance in this episode because I was there for it! So it wasn't much. It was just like, oh, well, I have to get this for my girlfriend, and my heart died. My heart died. That's so sweet. I mean, like, obviously, like, that's just a little basic thing, but it's the little things that really, make my heart melt. But also, they were, it switched to a scene, and they were just laying in her room, and they were just, like, laying, and he's like, oh, well, I could stay with you. Like, I don't need to go off, and I don't need to have fun. Like, I'd rather be here with you. I'd rather make you feel better. But she's like, oh no, like, I don't want to sacrifice your fun for me. Woo! It all comes full circle. In episode 9, they go into the void. They meet the original paladins. It was the coolest thing ever. And it definitely wasn't something that I was expecting, but it was really nice to see Allura meeting up with her dad again. And you know, all the things that the original paladins said to our current paladins, you know, the lion chose you for a reason. The lion sees things in you that, you know, other people don't see, and this is why it chose you, and this is why you're doing this, and you're here for a reason, and you're gonna do great things. You know, that really, it hits me hard, because when you're going off and you're fighting a battle, or you're doing anything really, and you don't have a really good emotional support system, then there are times when you're going to falter. There are times when you're going to say, oh, I can't do this anymore. Like, get me out of here. Choose somebody else. I don't want to do this. But just the reassurance that what they're doing is what they're supposed to be doing, and what they're doing is incredible, and they're going to do great things. That's so important, especially to hear from an old hero to a hero that now has to take up their mantle and save the day. I am going to say it again, but Lance gets approved by Allura's dad, and that was pure. So then we get into episode 10, and, you know, they go deeper into Nerva's mind, and they actually free Zarkon, and it's not the evil, oh, I'm gonna take over the world kind Zarkon, but it's the, I don't know what I was doing, I was being controlled, like the younger Zarkon, and Allura shows her all of the bad things that she's done, or that he's done, and he ends up, you know, falling to the ground. He's crying, like tears are streaming down his face, and it really shows that even though he was the main villain for such a long time, like, he didn't really have control of any of the actions that he was doing, because he was himself was being mind controlled by the quintessence. And it makes you think, how many of the other Galra, like, yes, they're just following their emperor, they were just following the rules of their leader, but how many other Galra were affected by the quintessence? And how many other Galra, even going back to Aksha, once she gets out of, you know, Galra territory, out of, you know, the hand of the war, she becomes more of a decent person. But then they blow up the moon, and it releases all of Nerva's deepest desires, which really helps them realize that she is going to destroy other realities just to get what she wants. And it's not even that she's doing this because she's a bad person. She's doing this because she has the power to. And honestly, if it's kind of like a Flash situation. Like, if you could go back in time, if you could save your loved ones, if you can stop all the bad things from happening, you would go back and you would do that. But the repercussions for the future, like, it would be, you really wouldn't know what to expect from the future. And she's not even doing it to change the future. She's doing it, she's going into different realities. So the people that she's meeting, like, for the first time, she's not even gonna, like, yeah, they're gonna be Zarkon, it's gonna be Lotor, but it's not gonna be the same Zarkon, it's not gonna be the same Lotor as the ones that she, in her own reality, she was used to. It's not gonna be the same. They're gonna have different personalities, you know, the butterfly effect. If one thing changes here, then, you know, down the line it could be a whole different thing. So in episode 11, they start working on a plan to get to Nerva. And so it's like, oh, you know, star cannon, whatever, you know, more troops. We need to find out where this is going. We need to attack Orion. And then, you know, I had a Lurance written down on this, and I didn't remember what it was from, so I had to go back and watch it really quick. I got it now. So Allura is in the med bay, and she's passed out, and Lance is there, and he's like, no, I need you, like, we all need you. And then she wakes up, and everything is all sunshine and rainbows, and it was magical. and it was pure, and I loved it, and I was there for it. So another thing that this episode produces is Unnerva almost kills all of the Alteans that are held captive on the Atlas, which Merla, who is one of the Alteans who was in the Roe Beast, she rebels against Unnerva, and it really shows that Unnerva showed her true colors when she said, oh, well, their sacrifice is going to the greater good, it's going to their leaders, but it's not fair for the Alteans that are like, oh, well, now I have to give up all of my stuff, like, we sacrificed ourselves to be in your war, and you're repaying us with death. Like, yeah, all Unnerva wants to do is reunite with her family, but it's costing other people their lives, and they won't get to be with their family, like, ever again. And so, in the last 2 episodes, I kind of grouped them together because it's the fight. So they have this big fight, and there's not really anything major to discuss except for the last thing that is on the screen that made me cry for 2 hours straight. How could you do that to me, DreamWorks? What the heck? I'm still salty about it. Like, I'm still gonna cry. Like, I should have seen it being built up, you know, all of these things. Allura, she tries to sacrifice herself. She tries to do all this, and then she's given the chance to sacrifice herself, and she does. I mean, there aren't really any words. She really made a bond with everyone in the Voltron coalition, and having to say goodbye to them after, 8 seasons, which is like, what, at least 5 years, because they're all grown up now. I mean, more grown up than before. I mean, she has to say goodbye to Karan. Like, she's known Karan her whole life. Like, he's the only Altean that was there when they were unfrozen in the Castle of Lions. And that had to be so hard. Did she even get to say goodbye to Karan? I don't even, was he there? I have no recollection, because I was focused on, you can probably guess. I mean, and a lot of people are like, oh, DreamWorks did us dirty, like, they got Lance and Allura together, and then they, like, broke them apart because she died. But, I mean, it has happened before in similar series. And, oh man, just talking about it right now is making my heart hurt. But, so they kiss, and, Lance gets the Altean marks. And then it shows us, how their lives are a year after the whole thing goes down with Allura and Nerva. And, everyone is so happy with their lives. Like, Hunk, he's cooking intergalactically to bring people together. Pidge is working on, an intelligent robot, like an AI. Like, it's crazy. Keith, he's doing humanitarian efforts. It seems like the Blade of Mamora, because that's the outfit that he is wearing. It seems like they transformed from a war effort into a humanitarian effort, which is super cool. Let's see, Lance, he just seems so, throughout the entire series, I've never seen him look so happy when he's talking to all of the little Alteans about Allura. And, he looks so content at the end when he's, a farmer for his family. And it's just, everything really comes together at the end. And they're sitting there, and Karan says, oh, well, everyone saw her as a leader, a friend, but everyone sitting around this table sees her as family. And that's one thing I really did feel from the first episode to the final episode of not even just this season, but this entire series, because they do start off, you know, Pidge and Lance and Hunk, they're all pretty close. Like, they all go to school together. They all work together. But Keith is an outsider. Keith never even had a family. Like, his dad died when he was little. His mom, she went into space and she did her Galra stuff. But, you know, Keith finally, he got a family. You know, Shiro, he gets married at the end. Like, congratulations. Like, that's so cool. But, like, Shiro, he has been doing this longer than anyone else, and he's seen more destruction than anyone else at that table. But somehow, out of everyone he's ever worked with, like, these are the people who were most like a family to him. And I was gonna say it's because of the Voltron bond, but, like, even Karan, like, everyone at the end ends up really loving Karan, and he was never even a part of Voltron. And it really just teaches you, like, a lot of things, like family. You know, like, family's gonna be there. You don't get to choose your family, but you do get to choose your friends, and eventually those friends will become family. And so, on that note, I'm gonna end my video here. I hope you all enjoyed. Please feel free to argue with me in the comments if you disagree with me. I know a lot of people disagree with the little rants, but if you had any of your own views, reactions to any of the stuff that I said, like, please let me know. I would love to discuss it further in the comments. Like, I'm down for that. But, you know, we, as a fandom, we stuck this one out, and we really lost something good with this series ending. So, you know, let fear be your guide, and form Voltron!